So with the release of PoE's new league right around the corner and Diablo 4's first season well underway, I thought it was a very good time to talk about the two games just very briefly. I'm going to try not to make this video too long. I tried to record this the other day, but I made it like 50 minutes long because I just started rambling, comparing the two games a little bit too much. But I'm going to try and shorten the video a little bit, try to make it maybe like 15-20 minutes, something like that. But I thought it was a very good time, like I said, to talk about the two games, compare them a little bit, and kind of persuade you a little bit of why you should be playing PoE more and stray away from Diablo 4. Now, when it comes to me about the two games, I started playing Diablo 4. I played it, I got up to level 48, played through the entire campaign, started playing a little bit of the end game, but felt very underwhelmed by it. And then obviously the recent news in like season 1 hasn't been going so well either. And you know, I watch a lot of Asmongold, so I've been watching all of his videos about Diablo 4, and it's basically just a whole entire fucking shit show. But, you know, a couple months ago, you know, after I'd finished playing Diablo 4 for a bit, I stumbled on PoE from one of my mates. He mentioned it to me and he told me to play it, and I have been fucking hooked since then. So I only joined halfway through the last league, which was Crucible, and the next one coming up is Trials of Ancestors. And since in the last 2 months, I have garnered over 126 fucking hours on Path of Exile. So I have a lot of experience playing this game already. Well, not really. I really don't have a lot of experience already playing it. And, you know, a lot of people are stray away from Path of Exile because they think that it's like, you know, too difficult to get into, and, you know, it's too complicated, especially when you look at the passive tree. You know, it's the skill tree, passive tree. You can see why people would, you know, not want to play it. But I definitely think that it's a lot better investment to play Path of Exile than Diablo 4. So the only things that I think that Diablo 4 have over Path of Exile would have to be the art style and graphics, which you got to hand it to Blizzard. Whenever it comes to Blizzard's art style and graphics, especially with Diablo or Diablo games, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be a lot better. But me personally, I don't really care too much about graphics. I care more about gameplay and stuff like that. And then I'd also have to give Diablo 4 the campaign and the story. The campaign itself and the story that goes along with it, as well as all like the cutscenes, are so much more engaging, so much more enjoyable. The characters are a lot more memorable. Once again, that's a Blizzard thing. When it comes to Blizzard games, as much as, you know, recently they've been shitting the bed a lot, you got to give them props when it comes to their character designs and just their characters and making memorable characters in general, you know. And one thing that I think is a little bit 50-50 with Diablo 4 compared to Path of Exile is the open world. You know, if you know anything about Path of Exile's campaign doesn't have an open world. It's got areas that, you know, the game's relatively linear in terms of the campaign, but the areas themselves that you venture into are relatively large, and some of them are randomly generated as well, especially once you move into the end game, into maps. Those are completely randomly generated. But yeah, some of the areas are relatively large, but with Diablo 4, the whole entire map is completely open world, but at the same time, it is pretty empty and there's not much to do in it in terms of the end game, and a lot of the side quests are pretty boring. Because let's be honest, you know, there's a massive open world in Diablo 4, and I kind of haven't used it. There's a lot of like emphasis more in the dungeons, which is fair enough because it's Diablo 4. But if you're going to put so much emphasis on the dungeons and not the open world, then what's the point of having the open world? That's what Path of Exile does so well, is that it doesn't worry too much about having an open world, because the emphasis is on the locations and the areas, the relatively large or small areas that you're in, and the rooms that you go into, and all the different maps and all the different areas that you venture into. It uses the spaces that it has very, very well, where Diablo 4 doesn't do that. And, you know, another complaint about Diablo 4 is the experience and the leveling. You know, me personally, I don't like how everything scales to you. You know, I don't like how I go back to the starting area and I verse monsters that are the exact same level as me. Where in Path of Exile, you know, you level up, you become, you know, you level up and you go back to, like, so when it comes to the end game, you go back to maps that, you know, are earlier or lower tiers. You're a beast. You just blast through those. Or if you had to go back and through the campaign and go back to Act 1 and say you're already up to the end game, those monsters there just won't fucking stand a chance. You would literally one-shot everything. And you know, the experience with Path of Exile is a little bit more difficult than Diablo 4, but it's more rewarding, and it definitely feels a lot more rewarding. Yeah, and when it comes to the leveling and experience, obviously there is the skill tree. And the skill tree is probably the one big thing about that I think would deter people from playing Path of Exile and lean them more to Diablo 4, is that, you know, it can be relatively complicated. But the thing is that there is many fucking guides out there. There is so many guides out there, and the community for Path of Exile, you know, people in the community, like myself, that's why I'm making this video, want you to play the game. And there's a lot of people out there who have made guides that will help you understand the game and help you understand the tree. I'm going to put it on the screen now, but the one build that I recommend the most, and I did it on my first run, is Enki's Arc Witch build. Editing Donnie here. While editing this video, I noticed that Enki actually has changed his Arc build and is now doing a Lightning Conduit build. Still, the guy goes into a lot of detail. It's the first time in fucking ever that this man has changed it. This man's been doing the Enki's Arc build, Witch build, since 2014. But now he's changed it to Enki's Lightning Conduit. So I'm going to be putting that on the screen and linking that one down below. But still go check it out, because this man goes so much into depth when it comes to the game anyways. But back to the video. Now, this guy has been updating this fucking build since 2014. He updates it every single league. And it is probably the most beginner friendly and best build and best guide when it comes to learning the game. This man goes into so much depth, so much, but he makes it simple at the same time about understanding the game and understanding the skill tree, understanding your abilities, understanding your weapons, understanding everything, your flasks, what type of jewelry to use. He makes you understand every single part of the game. And to me, you know, following that guide and going through with that guide, it's helped me understand the game so much. And to me, the passive tree on Path of Exile is simpler than the Paragon tree on Diablo 4. I look at the Paragon tree on Diablo 4 and I'm like, this thing is just large and stupid and mostly looks fucking useless. But to me, when it comes to the Path of Exile passive tree, I understand it now, because I followed that guide and I was willing to put in time and willing to put in effort to understand it. And, you know, like I said, it can be very detrimental at first. It can be kind of confusing, but after a decent amount of hours, after a few hours even, once you complete the game, and the campaign's not that long either. That's one thing, is the campaign, you can take your time with it, or you can get through it. You will understand the passive tree. Trust me. If you had to follow that guide, if you follow a guide like that, you will come to understand it. And obviously, one thing that I think that, you know, another thing that's very much a big improvement from Diablo 4 to Path of Exile is the fucking combat. The combat in Path of Exile is so much better. And, you know, the reason for that is because there's no cooldowns. There is absolutely no fucking cooldowns in this game. And I love that so much, because I hate in Diablo 4 when I use all my abilities and I have to run around in a circle like a fucking headless chicken, just waiting for all my abilities to come off refresh. Where in Path of Exile, there is no cooldowns on pretty much any of your abilities, or at least the ones that I've used so far, or even the ones that I've seen. And the Path of Exile developers have come out and said that they hate using cooldowns, and they will refrain from using cooldowns wherever possible. They have come out and said that. If you watch the recent Path of Exile 2 gameplay demo that they did at ExileCon, they even said that. They said that they hate using cooldowns and they will try to reframe it. Where in Diablo 4, there's just every single ability has cooldowns, and it just doesn't feel fun. It doesn't feel fun having to run around and wait for a fucking 60-second cooldown. Like, are you for real? Come on, man. Like Path of Exile's combat is just so much fun. And then coming out of the combat, what do you get when you're defeating bosses and all that stuff? Is loot. The loot in Path of Exile is just so much better. I remember seeing a video that Asmongold made, where it was some guy ranking all the barbarian uniques, and all of them were in fucking D tier. Every single one of them. So you're going to tell me that you want me to play the game and finish the game and then grind for the supposedly the most rarest equipment, rarest items in the game, just for them to be fucking trash? Why the fuck would I do that? Why would I put hundreds of hours in a game where I'm not going to get good items out of it, where I can put hundreds of hours into Path of Exile and finally get this item that's going to make my character from being extremely good to overpowered? Not necessarily overpowered, because the game is very, very well balanced, which I have to admit. The game is very well balanced. Even though some items are extremely strong, the game is still really well balanced, but it makes my character going from very good to just destroying normal mobs in one hit. You know, and obviously, like I mentioned, where you get loot from is the bosses. The bosses in Path of Exile 2, sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead, but don't get me started on Path of Exile 2. But Path of Exile, so much better. So much better. And there is so many bosses. And I will say, though, that some of the bosses from the campaign are reused in the endgame. But you don't come across them that much. You honestly don't. But the boss fights themselves are more memorable and so much more enjoyable and so much more harder to conquer. And when you conquer them, oh my god, the feeling is just fucking amazing. I have beaten the Black Star, Searing Exarch, Argus, and I can't remember one more of the endgame bosses. And man, defeating those guys, you just get like this real sense of achievement where I've seen people, you know, who have beaten Uber Lilith, and it's just like, oh yeah, cool, I defeated Uber Lilith, that's great. But you see people who fucking defeat the Maven, probably like the last boss that you will fight in the game, you know, because there's so many different levels into getting up to her. Defeating the Maven is the ultimate achievement in Path of Exile. And when you get to that level, I know one day I'm going to get to that fucking level. And I will be so ecstatic when I do. But when it comes to, you know, people defeating Uber Lilith, no one gives a shit. No one cares. And it's such an underwhelming fight as well. The fact that, you know, the endgame boss for the campaign is now the strongest boss in the game. That's not the case for PoE. The strongest boss in the campaign does not even fucking compare to the Maven boss fight, or even the Cyrus, or even such as like Searing Exarch, depending on your build. It doesn't fucking compare to that. Microtransactions in games these days are inevitable, and the fact that you have to pay so much money for Diablo 4 in the first place, if you're like me and you live in Australia, you had to fork out like up to 120 bucks for this game. And if you're stupid like me, you paid for the Ultimate Edition because you thought you'd be playing this game and you thought you'd get really invested into it, and now you have a Battle Pass token just fucking sitting there waiting to be activated, and probably never will at this point, because let's be honest, the game's not going to go anywhere. And from what I've seen as well, the Battle Pass is trash. I watched Ackman's video that came out yesterday of the time of recording this video, and he went over the Battle Pass, and it's fucking terrible. It's trash. Where in Path of Exile, the game is free. It's a free fucking game. And the microtransactions that you might have to fork out money for are the stash tabs. But god damn it, I am willing to pay money for this game. Because if this game was $80, I would have paid for it anyways. If this game was $100 and it gave me all the stash tabs, I would fucking pay for it. 100%. The fact that Path of Exile is a free fucking game, you don't have to pay for it. If you don't want to pay for the stash tabs, you don't have to. And it already gives you 4 anyways. Unlike Diablo, where it gives you like fucking 1. And then your whole inventory is just stuck with stupid gems. Guess what? If you want a currency stash tab, oh, it has that. There is a stash tabs for all different types of categories. There is a stash tab for every single unique. So this stash tab can carry one of every single unique that has ever existed in the fucking game. Imagine that. That's what I'm doing at the moment. I like collecting all the uniques, and I don't have to fill them up in one stupid tab. No, they all, I don't have to fill them up in multiple tabs, sorry. They just all sit in one beautifully, nicely sorted tab, all for me. All my currency sits in one nice tab. And then, obviously, when it comes to the biggest, I think the biggest things, no, the two biggest things when it comes to why you should play Path of Exile over Diablo 4. One, the endgame. The endgame for Path of Exile is like 1,000,000 times fucking better. So much better. There is so much more to do in the endgame than there is Diablo 4. Like, the amount of elements and the amount of time that you spend in the endgame is just, it's insane. Like, in Diablo 4, what do you do in the endgame? You just run a few dungeons, and that's about it. You run the same dungeons. Yeah. Well, in Path of Exile, there is 115 different maps. And every single time you load into a map, it's randomly generated. And every single one of those maps have a boss. Oh, and did I forget to tell you that there's also multiple different events in these maps, and also different types of endgames as well? There's not just maps. Oh no, there's Delve, there's heists, You can do blight runs. I love the blight runs. Personally, they're so good. Harvest, you can do harvest. You can do, there is just so many different elements to the end game than just running maps, or in Diablo 4, just running dungeons. Because that's all you do, is you just run dungeons until you reach level 100 to defeat Uber Lilith, and that's it. That's it. That's all you have to do. And then point 2 of why you should definitely, the reasons why Path of Exile, you should be playing it over Diablo 4, is the future of the game. The future of Path of Exile looks extremely bright. You know, so the moment I'm recording this, it's the 14th of August. The current League Crucible ends tomorrow for Path of Exile, and then the new League starts on Saturday, or if you're in America, starts on Friday. And man, this new League is looking fucking amazing. Trial of Ancestors. And you know what? It's not just about this upcoming League. It's about Path of Exile 2. Path of Exile 2 is going to be... If they even improve on Path of Exile just by this much, it'll already be an amazing game. Because Path of Exile already is an amazing game. So they've got that core of the game set there. And they're just adding to it. And I remember seeing in ExileCon, the reason why is that they didn't originally want Path of Exile 2, but there was just so many different elements that they were adding to the game and developing that's where it was warranted for a second game. And you got to trust these guys, because it's not Blizzard. We ain't getting some Overwatch 2 where we're being promised all this stuff that it's going to be a completely new game and that it's warranted for having 2 on the end of it. But really, in fact, it's not. Triple G, you can tell that these devs are dedicated and love their game. Oh, and also, they know how to fucking play their game. Unlike the recent gameplay footage that came out for Diablo 4, where Diablo, like, I feel bad for the 2 developers, but they pulled those 2 women and pushed them in front of the camera and said, play the game and talk about it. And it was a shit show, and the whole entire Diablo 4 community is just talking trash about it. Where at ExileCon, they had one of the developers playing the game live, and you could tell that he's played the game before. You could tell, and he died to a boss, and then that motherfucker went back and defeated that boss. You could tell that he learned and he improved, and you could tell that they put love into this game, and they're not restricted by a massive company like Blizzard Activision. Because you know what? Some of the developers for Diablo 4 probably have a lot of passion and want the game to do well. But then there's Blizzard Activision, the company. It's not worth giving them money like we already have and still playing their game. We might have already given them money, but stop fucking playing it. Come to Path of Exile. I'm telling you, you will not regret it. And like I said, it might be complicated, but I'm going to link Enki's Arc Witch guide down below. Please check it out. I'm telling you, it'll be worth your time. But that's it from me. I've rambled on a lot. But all I can say is, if you've been playing Diablo 4 and you feel like you deserve more, there's Path of Exile. There's Path of Exile. I'm telling you, change over now. Do yourself justice. That's it from me. Peace out.